We have a very full agenda this morning, but I want to start, as we always do, by taking a look at numbers. Since we last met, and it's been a little longer because of the summer, on June 29th, we have, and this is really, I think, I'm doing the meeting today at Newton Wellesley Hospital, and we're about to do a program when we finish where they have planted the purple flags to remember opioid awareness. And as I pulled in here and saw that, I was thinking about the numbers, but what is really kind of startling is since June 29th, when we were last together, we have experienced in this county 50 additional deaths. And they have, as always, happened across an incredibly broad range of our communities. Those with more than one death include Lowell, which unfortunately had 7, Waltham at 5, Everett and Framingham at 4, and Marlborough, Somerville at 3, and then Medford at 2. So, you know, as much as we make progress, it is a really stark reminder of how much still remains to be done. And I think we have a chart that hopefully people are going to be able to see, sort of comparing numbers. There we go. We're back to our maps. And you will see where those have occurred. Again, you know, concentrated in Lowell, as well as what we kind of call the elbow of the county, the Malden, Everett, Somervilles, but scattered pretty much again across most of the communities in our county. And when you think about how diverse those communities are, it shows you again the breadth of this issue. And as many of you know, I'm sure in the awareness piece, 2,290 confirmed deaths that were opioid related overdoses occurred in Massachusetts during 2021. And that was estimated to be 185 more deaths than the year before. And, you know, first of all, I think it is daunting to see those numbers. It is a reminder of presence of these issues in every community. And as well, for many of you who've been with us a long time, though, you do see that much of our work, as well as the presence of Narcan, has made an incredible difference in bringing down those numbers. And just a reminder, now that we're sort of more back in person, that we continue to provide Narcan really for anybody who wants it. So if you have a program or a group that needs that, please just reach out to us and we're happy to either drop it off or arrange for you to pick it up. Everybody, I'm sure on this call knows that September is Recovery Month. And just a reminder that the tagline for Recovery Month is recovery is for everyone, every person, every family, and every community. And that work really belongs to us as well as to everybody in the community. You know, one of the things I'm always struck by is the work that we have done around reducing stigma, how important our partnerships are with law enforcement, the broader criminal justice and the healthcare systems, and how the issues have changed. You know, the fact that I now have police officers routinely calling to say, you know, I need more Narcan. What can I do about this? How can we be helpful in this program? That is a very different place than where we were 9 or 10 years ago. The tools, the trainings, the perspective, and a broader acceptance of harm reduction. You know, just the conversations that are taking place around harm reduction centers. The fact that we're even having those conversations shows you how far we have come. And yet there's such a long way to go. And we have, since the very beginning of this program, we learned from people who have been there and have come to recovery. And we have 3 presenters today addressing some of those issues. One from the perspective of how a community comes together and works together to solve problems. One from an evidence-informed recovery community, and then from the local office of a national detox and recovery program. And I just want to say two things. One of which is, I know that every one of you has a program or story that you want to tell or share. And I'm going to invite you at the end of the presentations to stay with us and share either a story or something about the program, because that's how we make our communities and our families better. So please don't be shy about that, and think about, as you listen to our amazing presenters today, how you can add to that. But before we do that, I want to talk about one new program that just this morning, I think we've got a commitment of interest to. Some of you may have seen, there is a lot of research that indicates now, as we know, that people who have better connections to family, friends, whatever, that they've managed to hang on to through their addiction, do better, right? Just makes sense. You have more to get better for. We unfortunately have lots of people who those convictions, by the time they're into recovery, those connections are gone. And they don't have that family or friends or whatever. They disappointed people all over the place and they're just not there. But there is a lot of new research that suggests that dogs can serve as a really important substitute for some of those connections. And programs are establishing that people who have a dog, who know that dog is waiting for them, know they've got to feed that dog, all of those things tend to show up more for their appointments, engage better in their programs, do all of that. And that some of that research that we've been looking at is really profiled in a column in the Boston Globe today, which we can send around to you about how important that can be. There is a guy who grew up here who was a hockey star at Boston College and then went on to play professionally before an injury, and long usual story of injury, got prescribed opioids, developed an addiction, really spiraled down before making his way back up in 2006. And he's become involved in this program about matching dogs with programs. And that is something, as many of you know, we have a recovery dog in the office. I have seen the difference that has made, both for the people we interact with and our staff. So we are going to participate in rolling out a program to get some dogs to be available in recovery centers. And one of the things you may know about is the Stanton Foundation, which is a foundation that helps to fund dogs for police stations, for recovery dog, for service dogs. I've talked to them. I talked to them again this morning. They are very interested in being in a partnership like this. You know, it's expensive. The dogs are donated, so you wait sometimes a while to get your dog. Then there's obviously, you have to have somebody who will take the dog home and live with the dog. And you have to provide food and care for the dogs. But this is something, it makes sense to me that we should try this. So I am hoping that some of our programs, either residential programs or day programs, that would be interesting and be interested in being a part of this and having dogs come during the day, or sharing dogs with other programs in their area. Well, you can throw something in the chat for us. You can reach out to us. But I'd like to grow a good roster of programs that would be willing to do this, and then start aiming to figure out how many of these dogs we can get and get working. I think, you know, I believe in innovation. I believe in following the science. And I think this is a program that, again, like childhood trauma, it just makes sense to be doing this. So, and we've got amazing partners who are willing to take that risk with us and do something different. So, and I'm just seeing that Newton Wellesley has a dog buddy, and it's been wonderful. And that is our experience as well with our dog Bear. So that's my exciting little piece for this morning. I want to turn things over to our first presenter, Carrie-Ann Cacavaro, which I said it perfectly. And as many of you know, Carrie-Ann is somebody who's been here so many times before. She's incredibly generous. We have to actually let her go first this morning because she is then rushing off from this to go meet with our brand new DAs and train them about addiction, about recovery court, about what works. I am so personally proud of Carrie-Ann every time I see her. I first met Carrie-Ann when she was in the drug court, And she has come just such an amazing distance. You know, those are the stories that you don't always think about incredible recovery. And she has really paid it forward, because not only is she working in this field now, but she's been so available to talk to people, to help people. She was part of one of our first sort of mobile policy forums, where we went around and really, I believed from the beginning we had to have at the table the voices of people who had lived through these experiences, rather than telling them what would work. We needed to hear what did work. She went everywhere with us, just telling her story all the time and sharing and helping people. And she's now working at the Bridge Recovery Center. Recently got promoted there. And a quick follow on social media gives you a sense of the really open, diverse, and inclusive workplace at Bridge in Malden, and the hard work that everyone, including Carrie Ann, are doing. It's a great reminder that when we lower the barriers and create a community, people do better. So I am proud and happy to see you here this morning, and thank you again for being willing to do this.
Thank you so much, Marian. I was like tearing up, and every time I kind of am asked to speak, I get filled with gratitude, because like it's been a huge part of my own personal process, and it's been a privilege to just kind of share my experience with hopes that like it might help another person kind of understand where a lot of us are coming from. So I'm always really grateful. And Marian has been a huge part of my process. Even came to my drug court graduation, recovery court graduation. So anytime that I can share like my own personal knowledge, I always try to be available. But with that, I am Carrie Ann Kagabauer from the Bridge Recovery Center. I am the director of the Recovery Center. This center is located in Malden. We're right in between Malden Station and Wellington Station. So we have a lot of public transportation access, and we are a peer-to-peer recovery center. So what that means is we're grant funded. So anybody that comes and wants to participate in our center, we basically go off of how they want to participate. It's not on what my expectation of participation is. We try to get our members involved with community-based organizations, volunteering, changing the stigma. We also try to help them enroll in school, find recovery coaches. Anything from A to Z basically is what we offer. The only thing we don't offer is any type of clinical supports. What we always try to do is refer out. The staff that we have are primarily people that this is their first experience working somewhat with others that are trying to enter in their recovery. They also started off as members. So the majority of my staff started off as volunteers and members, and became so active within the center that we said, you know what, we think that you should come and join our team and teach others how to do this. We originally opened in 2020 when the world was closed. So it was really difficult to have a peer-to-peer connection-based center when we were all only connecting virtually. So one of the ways that we tried to bring the attraction at that time for when we were allowed to have people come in the center was, how could we utilize social media and technology to kind of build that attraction? And one of the ways we did that was we decided to have a noontime like music mix. And so every day our assistant director would go on Facebook Live, and it's something simple, but it stuck. People started to wonder, what is going on at this center? Why do I keep on seeing music playing every day at lunch? How come I can hear all this music? Whatever. And it ended up helping us so much that when it was time for us to open up our center, we were always like having to turn people away because of capacity. And we had specific time frames. In March of 2021, we were able to open up our doors for the most part, and following the capacity guidelines. And we had our first Black Balloon Day event, and we ended up having over 60 people attend that event throughout the day in various groups. Now, since then, we have been able to help people and assist people with resume building. We do a lot of volunteer work. We currently work with Bread of Life in Malden, and we do weekly fridge fillings where we go around to the local community fridges. We clean out the fridges. We teach our members how to give back and be the example that we want to show our community, that it's not always us taking. Like we are different people when we're not using. And we're also a place that, like, when somebody does have a lapse, they know that it's a safe environment and they can come to us in a judgment-free zone. And we're not going to sit behind a desk, and we're not going to have this like clinical response. We're going to meet them exactly where they're at, and we're going to see how we can help them. And not in the way that I feel I need to help, but what they're asking for. Um, we allow children to come into the center. There are designated times for the most part that children's come into the center. But what we notice in our community especially is that we have a lot of single parents. And so when we opened, a lot of these parents were at home doing virtual schooling, working virtually. So they were kind of like spent, they were burnt out. And so when we opened, um, what we started to see was that a lot of single parents were bringing their children here, and it was a safe environment for them. And the children all kind of created their own environment within the center as the parents were able to find their recovery. That grew so much that we have on Friday night game nights, which from statistics, Friday night's typically a very high relapse night, because people will get their paychecks or will come into some sort of money, and it's really difficult to navigate. Okay, what do I do when I do get paid? And so our members decided, why not having game nights on Friday nights, where it's a recovery community. We're not speaking to you about what your sobriety length looks like or what your past experience looks like. We're looking at you as a human and trying to create a cool environment that people want to come to. So now being open close to a little over 18, well, close to 2 years, what we have seen so far is we have a very large community. We do a lot of outdoor activities. We have our members going on hikes. We have our members, like I said, filling the fridges. They're constantly volunteering. And we offer support groups during the day. So we have support groups that are chosen by our members, ran by our members, voted on by our members. So if we notice that there are trends where people are not coming, or it's not really catching, our members decide how they want to move forward with that. And more recently, which is like one of my favorites, we started to notice that in our area there was a lot of there was a lack of follow through a lot of times after an overdose. And so what we started to notice, obviously, in your typical aftercare after an overdose, the hospital or the first responder would give you a stapled pack of paper. Nobody's going to keep that paper. After an overdose, nobody's walking out of the hospital and going through 5 pages going, gee, I think I'm going to call this place. So we had a meeting with our members and decided, okay, what would be easier to access resources if you were just coming out of the hospital from an overdose? And our members decided a QR code, which I'm going to send to Nora at the end of this, that we can send out to everybody. Our members came up with an idea that you scan the QR code. It's pretty. It just says need help. And on the back, it's just a QR code. And what the person would do is they scan the code. And inside the code are live websites and phone numbers, websites and phone numbers that the person can just press on for local recovery coaches, harm reduction things, shelters, supports for LGBTQ, and live meetings. And so with that, we ended up kind of pushing that further, which I thought was really innovative of our members to kind of come up with and create somewhat on their own. And they also decided to make really large stickers that they put in various bathrooms that we've noticed have high overdose or high traffic, and at bus stops. So, you see a QR code, it says need help. You don't know what for. Yeah, if I see something that says need help, I'm going to look at it and go, yeah, I probably do need help. Let me see what this is. And I scan it, and it's a PDF, and it's a downloadable PDF. So you don't have to keep the card, and you don't have to have the actual sticker. The PDF will download to your phone. And we update that regularly. We now have it in Malden schools. the Malden first responders have been using it. And we also have various cities that are working with us so that we can personalize their own resource card pertaining to their police stations and recovery coaches, which it just shows you the value of members. And like when you give somebody the opportunity and hold space for them and ask them to be a part of something, how creative that person can be. And so we would love it if anybody is in the area, come on down. It's a great space. It's very inviting. We have a lot of different events going on. We just recently had a kickball tournament in Medford. So we're teaching people how to team build and kind of not be too aggressive or competitive. And it's really exciting to see. We get to see people that, you know, they come from a hopeless state. And it's really scary to come to the Bridge Recovery Center on your own, walk up the back stairs all on your own and say, hey, I don't know what this is, but I need help, and stick with it, and then become an active member of our center and eventually our staff member. We're really proud of the space, and we're excited to see what's happening in the future. I know Marion was talking about the dogs. I'm going to definitely try to see if we can have a dog at our center. I would personally love that. I find animals to be extremely therapeutic, and a lot of our members do as well. They always bring their reptiles a lot of the times. But no, it's just stepping out of the box of what we've been all kind of trained to think is the only way, and showing that there's not just one way. Sometimes just giving somebody the creative ability to be who they really are and supporting that can really be the motivating factor that pushes somebody into their recovery. So with that, I'll share my time, and I will also make sure I email Nora the card. Thank you.
Okay, so that's why I'm so proud of her. Anybody have any questions or comments for Carrie? I know people have been putting some things in the chat, but anybody else?
Carrie, it's Cole from Methuen PD. That was freaking awesome. So proud of you, young lady. Keep it going. And I need to schedule a visit to see you.
Please do. Thank you, Cole.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Could you just rush off and do the next thing for me today? It's all about me today.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right. Our next presenter is also someone who, for those of you who've been with us from the beginning, has really been with us for so many years, has done so many innovative things, has showed up. She really is sort of part of the backbone of all of this. And that's Katie Sugarman, who's the Prevention and Outreach Program Manager and Drug-Free Communities Grant Program Director for the Natick Health Department. And, you know, I've gone to so many amazing programs in Natick. They've sponsored so many things. They've really been leaders in sort of bringing the community together to address these issues. And Katie has some important updates and some more information that she wants to share with us. So, Katie, I'm really happy to welcome you back.
Thanks so much, DA Ryan. So grateful to be here and so appreciative of the invitation. And it's true, DA Ryan has been involved in what we've been doing in Natick for so long. And in fact, I'll talk just briefly about some of the things that helped us get some footing and some traction here in Natick some years ago to do this work as a community. And DA Ryan was often there at some of those events that really helped raise awareness in our community. So I am going to just share some slides, and I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, since I know there are other awesome presenters that are going to be sharing today as well. But it's so great to see a lot of familiar faces on here, and please feel free to reach out to me either today or after this presentation if anybody has any questions. So as DA Ryan mentioned, my name is Katie Sugarman. I'm the Prevention and Outreach Program Manager for the Natick Health Department. And in that role, I also serve as the Program Director for our community coalition, which is known as Natick 180. I'm not going to go into the full history of all the work that we do here in Natick, but actually Natick's been community organizing around substance use since the 80s, since Governor Dukakis started funding communities to look at the impacts of underage drinking and alcohol use disorder in our communities. We've worked over the years to bring some of our prevention work and some of our focus on the opioid crisis together, which is what led us in 2019 to create this kind of new organization called NATIC 180, which marries our prevention work, our substance use prevention that targets young people and their families to try to prevent substance use disorder before it starts, that marries it with the full continuum of substance use, from prevention through treatment and recovery. And so we're so fortunate to have a lot of really key community partners involved in our work. Some of the things that built our readiness to do this work in NATIC, and I will say I did this work in Revere for 5 years, kind of as the opioid crisis was really getting a lot of people's attention around 2008. And prior to that, I worked in Watertown. But one thing I learned from my experience in Revere was that one of the things that started to build community readiness for this issue was to address stigma and to really, and I think everybody on this call already knows that, right? I'm looking at all these faces and recognize you all as champions in reducing stigma in our communities and in our Commonwealth. For Revere and what we brought here to NATIC was creating an annual vigil to remember those we had lost to overdose. The opportunity for families who have been impacted to see that they're not alone, to see that it's not just them, and to also just normalize for people that this is not a disease that only impacts certain types of people or whatever stereotypes that people have in their minds about what it means to experience substance use disorder. We started our first vigil in 2014 after we had a couple of very public losses in the community of families who were well connected in the community, well known in the community, recent graduates of our high school. And I think those losses really startled and shocked a lot of people. So we hosted our first vigil. DA Ryan was at that vigil. And we have continued that event, that annual event, since 2014. We also are so fortunate to partner with an organization in NATIC called SOAR NATIC, which is a group of parents and families who came together around 2014 as well, to try to build more networking and connections among families who have been impacted. And they started hosting the Purple Flag Project in downtown NATIC some years ago. And these are the purple flags, actually the very same purple flags that will be installed today at Newton Wellesley Hospital, or actually already were there. They've already been installed there, but there's going to be a ceremony at Newton Wellesley Hospital. And I can't thank Dr. Armstrong and Dr. Baraveld enough from the Substance Use Services Division at Newton Wellesley for really championing this. But the purple flags really became this annual symbol in the community that continues to remind folks. I mean, people look for those flags every International Overdose Awareness Day, and they usually stay up for a couple of weeks through NATIC Days, which is a big community event that brings thousands of people into our downtown area. And so we continue to do these community awareness events just to keep this issue in people's minds. There's so many competing issues for people's attention. Obviously, the pandemic interrupted and kind of made us do our work differently over the last couple of years, but keeping this crisis kind of front and center in people's minds is so important, not just so that we can continue raising awareness and educating folks, but also so that we can continue to sustain this work too, and not give folks any false sense that somehow this is no longer an issue. So these are just a few slides about kind of our mission. We really try to address substance use from a holistic perspective here in NATIC, really using data, science, evidence-based strategies in how we do our work. And these are just a few of the community partners that we have at the table. We are fortunate to have the Federal Drug-Free Communities Grant, which does fund 1.5 positions on our staff, which is really critical. My colleague Lizzie Chalfin is on this call as well. And she is our full-time coordinator. And we're so fortunate to have her because it allows us to have one full-time staff person who's focusing on the prevention work and building relationships and partnerships with our schools and our Rec and Parks Department and our youth serving organizations, while I'm able to do more of, focus more of my time on some of the treatment and recovery work, trying to build connections to more services so that our community community knows that they're there. In Natick, we don't have a ton of service providers who are physically, geographically located in our boundaries. And so we need to let people know what services are out there for them, how to access them. There are a lot of amazing agencies that do serve Natick, but they are based in Framingham or they're based in Marlborough. And so we need to make sure that folks know how they can access those services, which services will come to them, and how they can go access those services as well. This is just a quick, this is not going to be a data heavy presentation, but this is one quick slide that just gives you a sense of the overdose rates that we've seen in our community. And this is data from our Natick Police Department. You know, in 2019, we saw our biggest spike in overdoses. And in 2020, I think we were bracing ourselves for, you know, what the impacts of the pandemic were going to be, what it was going to do to people's recovery plans, and wondered if we were going to see a spike. We saw a delayed spike, and in 2020 we didn't see an increase in overdoses. We even saw a decrease, but in 2021, as I know a lot of our community saw, we saw a significant increase in fatalities in particular, which was really distressing. Right now in 2022, we're trending downwards compared to the same time last year. But I always hold my breath when we get to September, because I don't know why, but for whatever reason, we've seen a pattern of the fall being our heaviest time for overdoses. And I'm sure there are smarter people than me on this call. So if anybody has insights as to what that seasonal connection is, I would be so grateful to have other people's insights, because that's something that we still are trying to unpack here in Natick. I will say, though, that I met with the lieutenant from the Natick Police Department that I work really closely with on this work, Lieutenant Chad Howard, and we were looking at some of our most recent overdoses in September, and I believe we had 3 in September, so far in September, if I can recall. But it was the first time when we met, it was the first time that I could recall that he reported that all of the overdoses that occurred had Narcan already on scene when first responders arrived and had already been deployed. And so that was like, for me, like, oh my gosh, I hate to hear that overdoses are happening, but if I'm hearing that Narcan was already there and was already used, that's what I want to hear. That's the trend that I want to see happening consistently. And so we'll see if that continues to happen, but that was encouraging information to get from our police partners. So as I mentioned, we work across the continuum. And so I have just some highlights here of some of the work. Sorry, I'm not sure where that feedback was coming from. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So just a few kind of items around prevention. You know, we do a lot of community education in Natick. We try to target parents, caregivers, and youth serving organizations. We've been increasing our, in addition to continuing to educate folks about adolescent brain development and the connections between, you know, the vulnerability of the adolescent brain and substance use. We've also been doing a lot more work around mental health as well, because we see it as such a significant risk factor here in our community. We had our own staff trained in youth mental health first aid, which is a 6-hour training. It's intensive, but we've been fortunate to have nearly 120 people in our community participate in that training. And the schools featured our training as part of one of their full day CEU, you know, professional development training days, so that it was one of the options available to teachers and to staff. We also were recently trained in QPR suicide prevention training, and we'll be launching that very soon. We have a mailing list of over 1,300 people and hundreds more on social media who follow us. And so well, I'll have our handles at the end of this, so we would really welcome you to follow us as well. But we share a lot of educational information through that. We also sent out an educational mailer last year that has information about resources, prevention tips. We sent that out to 16,000 addresses here in Natick last year. We work closely with the schools. We have the life skills evidence-based curriculum in all of the health classes at the middle schools. We have a youth group at the high school called Natick Above the Influence. And we also have featured recovery speakers in all of our health classes. We have a diversion program that we work closely with the schools and Natick Service Council to support. And we're in the process of integrating a new curriculum from Mass General Hospital into that diversion program model. I know there are over 100 districts in our Commonwealth who are also part of that pilot. So some of you may be on this call, some of you on this call may already be familiar with that. And we also have a couple in our community who are actually parent coaches for what was formerly the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids, and now is I always forget their new name, the Partnership to End Addiction, I think is their new name. So they actually provide parent coaching to people around the country and have also run a communication workshops series for parents who have teens and young adults who are struggling with substance use related challenges. And they provide coaching and support and communication. They train parents in how to change their communication strategies in order to have more impact in promoting change in their young person, and also building healthier boundaries for themselves. These are some of our youth in the community educating middle schoolers in one of our after school programs, and also doing a sticker shock initiative with us during prom and graduation season, reminding people not to purchase alcohol for anyone under 21. These are some of the awesome recovery speakers we had last year in our health classes. We're also always trying to increase access to treatment and harm reduction services in our community. We have an amazing team as part of our post-overdose support team. That's a team that includes myself, our police partners, that Lieutenant Howard that I mentioned, as well as a harm reduction specialist from JRI Health in Framingham, and our JDP clinician, our jail diversion program clinician from Advocates. We meet monthly to go over our most recent overdose data and to identify folks who we need to do some outreach to. Narcan distribution, obviously, we always want to make sure that people know that they can get Narcan through local pharmacies, through our partners at JRI Health, but we also provide Narcan out of our health department. I think we may be the first health department that did this back in 2018 here in Massachusetts. We did it in partnership with our friends and colleagues over at the Framingham Health Department, and Ashland and Hudson were also part of that initial launch too. To date, we've distributed about 167 Narcan kits, and we go around and do organizational trainings. We've tried to target the motels along Route 9. We will do Narcan trainings in any organization that invites us in. So we've had local social service agencies, private schools in our community that have invited us in to do those trainings. And then of course, we'll also train individuals who want it for their own personal use. We try to make sure that members of our community are aware of some of the services that are out there through the substance use helpline, as well as our local connections here in the Metro West Care Connection and Interface referral services. And we're partnering with our friends at JRI Health to also launch a mobile health van, an app that will be available not just to Natick residents, but to our Metro West region. The van has already started doing some work here in our region. And these were some of our friends from JRI who were at our April medication take back day, and who were giving out, syringe boxes, giving out harm reduction information, and also giving out medication lock boxes so that folks can lock up their medications. And most importantly, it's Recovery Month. Let's talk recovery real quick. We're always trying to infuse the voices of people in recovery into all of our work. Excuse me, we have a standing opening on our steering committee for a person in recovery, because we want to make sure that we have that voice on our leadership team, but we also have folks in recovery on our action teams, which are our subcommittees. We hosted a Pathway to Recovery virtual event back in 2020 as part of, during the pandemic, and connected to that was a resource list that we started putting out in the community that has kind of just an overview of all the different types of recovery supports that are out out there. It's not just 12-step. It's not just smart recovery. There are so many things that people do. And the example that DA Ryan already shared about the dogs, I know as a sibling of somebody in recovery, when my brother got a dog, that made all the difference in his life. It was an amazing new opportunity for him to learn new life skills and strategies, and still is kind of crucial to his recovery to this day. We do social media posts called Transformation Tuesdays, where we highlight the stories of people in recovery. We've also really been tried to communicate or let folks in recovery in our community know that we actually have local organizations that will provide small financial support for some of the things that come up during recovery that can create these destabilizing barriers to continuing in recovery. So as a quick example, I was tabling at a community event recently, and a woman approached me and said, "Oh my gosh, you're the one who helped connect me to SOAR Natick." It was somebody in recovery who before the pandemic reached out to us because she was newly in recovery, had all of these outstanding tickets, and also had to take a driving course in order to get her license reinstated. She couldn't get to her job without that license, but she couldn't get to the course without paying all of these outstanding fees. So we were able to connect her to our friends at SOAR Natick and the Natick Rotary Club, who helped provided the funds, helped her get those challenges off of her plate so that she could get that course done and she could get to her job. And so it was awesome to see her. She looked fabulous. She's doing really great. And she was like, that little thing really helped me in my journey. So we love to hear those kinds of wonderful stories. We also work closely with the Framingham Health Department, and we're in the process of trying to kind of reinvigorate and revamp a Metro West recovery-friendly workplace initiative. We had this started before the pandemic, excuse me, and then the pandemic kind of blew it all up. So we're trying to reestablish that, but essentially it would be a way for us to help support and train local businesses in how do you make your workplace more recovery friendly? How do you both hire and retain good workers, people who are in recovery, who both need employment for their own recovery purposes, but also can benefit local businesses. And we also featured just last week, a screening of Recovery City, which is a film that's actually by a documentarian based out of Natick here, but who's been showing this film throughout a number of communities. She's going to be showing it in Worcester very soon. And my colleague Lizzie is going to put the information in the chat in case anybody wants to check it out. But it profiles the stories of several women in recovery in the Worcester area. It's a powerful story of kind of both the amazing resiliency of people in recovery, as well as the way that sometimes our systems fail them and sometimes create challenges to their recovery. And so we had an awesome panel discussion after the screening last week. You can see Dr. Armstrong from Newton Wellesley there in the orange jacket, who was part of the event. And it was held over at the Center for the Arts here in Natick. And it was just a great evening all around. So I think we may be a little short on time, so maybe I won't show our video here, but if you go to our Natick 180 website, this is a short video that we have that just kind of shows some of the different people from our community who are involved in our work. You
can go. It's we got.
Do we have time?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I don't want to take too. Can you hear me? Okay. If I take my. Okay. So I'm going to just go back to the video real quick. We made this during the pandemic with members of our coalition.
We know that addiction happens in all communities.
We know that any individual in any family in any town, no matter their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, or economic status, can experience substance use disorder.
We know that substance use does not define a person.
We know that addiction does not reflect how loving a family is or how much a community cares.
We know prevention works and that stigma has no place in Natick.
We know no matter what path a person is on, recovery can happen, and it's always possible to make a 180.
We know that by creating more connections between programs, prevention education, services, and treatment providers, we can help our friends and neighbors who experience addiction.
We know that the longer youth can wait to try alcohol and other
other substances, the lower their chance will be for experiencing addiction in their lifetimes.
Sabemos que lidiar con el uso de sustancias nunca es fácil, especialmente en tiempos difíciles como estos.
But we want you to know
we are here for you.
Know that Natick 180 is made up of people and organizations from across Natick who are working together to reduce addiction. First, our town. Second, our first responders. Third, our schools. Fourth, our neighbors in recovery. And fifth, our entire Natick community is here to support you.
Know that if you are looking for prevention resources or supporting someone through addiction treatment, we are here to help.
Know that if you or a loved one experiences substance use disorder, you are not alone.
Know that if you have lost a loved one to substance use, they are not forgotten.
Know that if you are a community member who wants to make a difference, we welcome you.
Know that we're here for you in this time and always.
Natick 180, one community together.
That was great.
Thanks so much. And it was really great to be with all of you today. I'll just share my contact information, if I'm able to exit out of that real quick, on my final slide, so that if anybody wants to contact me, you're welcome to. And again, I appreciate the time, appreciate all the amazing work that everybody on this call is doing.
Thank you. You know, one of the things I was very struck by was when you just showed those clips and you saw the little girl with the sign that said, "My mommy's in recovery." I remember when we did that first vigil in the church, I don't remember how many years ago that was. And there'd been a number of losses of young people in the community. And just as a parent, I remember the look on the parents' faces. They were sort of slinking into the church, kind of bewildered, embarrassed, I think probably not wanting people to see them going into the church on the main street. And, you know, we have come such a long, long way. And in the recognition of communities, and that it doesn't speak to people's families or failures or anything when something happens like that. And that alone in the human level is amazing.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Yeah, no, and thank you for your support.
I am pleased today that the staff from the Coleman Institute for Addiction Medicine in Wellesley is here. The Coleman Institute offers outpatient, both detox and treatment. And Jennifer Gearhart is a licensed independent clinical social worker with over 30 years of experience in behavioral health and substance use services. And Amanda Pitts, who's the executive director of the Institute, is an experienced licensed alcohol drug counselor with a 16-year history in behavioral health and addiction treatment. Amanda holds a master's degree from UMass Boston in applied psychology with a concentration in forensic services. She has a national certification in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy and is a trained facilitator in nurturing recovery programs. So welcome, Jennifer and Amanda. We're really happy to have you with us this morning.
Well, thank you so much for having us. What big shoes to fill after Carrie Ann and Katie and that amazing video. We're really happy to be here today to talk a little bit about the Coleman Institute. I primarily have spent the majority of my career on the South Shore. And so I am really thankful to be a part of this committee. I have been with the Coleman Institute now since 2018. We are located in Wellesley, Massachusetts. I'm going to pull up my slideshow here. Let's see. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. The Coleman Institute is a part of Baymark Health Services, and Baymark Health Services is the parent company for all 3 forms of medicated assisted treatment. We know that one size does not fit all. So we have companies in New England that you've probably heard of: Healthcare Resource Center, Applegate Recovery, Middlesex Recovery, and we've recently just been able to be fortunate enough to acquire Granite Recovery in Liberty Bay. So really just being able to expand our continuum of care. So the Coleman Institute historically has had the specialty of being able to help to get patients onto naltrexone therapy using a quick and comfortable outpatient detox process. So I know that the majority of my career, working inpatient in substance use facilities, having the opportunity to look at an outpatient model just really provided another access to care. So who are we? So we were founded in Richmond, Virginia in 1998 by Dr. Peter Coleman. Dr. Coleman himself has been in recovery since 1984. They have done a lot of work. He was voted the top doc in addiction medicine in Richmond Magazine every year since 2014. We offer accelerated outpatient detox, and I'm going to talk a little bit specifically what that means in a couple of slides. And we can usually do this within 3 to 8 days. Our treatment focuses are on opioids, alcohol, and benzodiazepines. Here in Massachusetts, we are not currently offering the treatment for benzodiazepines, but in our Richmond office, we are. The medication-assisted treatment that we're using is naltrexone, which most people are familiar with, which is an opioid blocker, and we are leaders in naltrexone therapy. This is just a picture of our office here in Wellesley. Many people that, we hear from, many individuals that have come in for treatment, that they really find that the office space is confidential, it's discreet, it's in a host of other medical offices. So what is an accelerated opioid detox? This is an outpatient procedure. So patients can spend the night in their own bed, in their own home, in the comfort of their family or support people in their lives. We do have folks that do travel all throughout New England and other states, and they may stay at a hotel or an Airbnb. This is usually completed within 3 to 8 days. It's very safe and very comfortable. So most people report it's the most comfortable, if they've been through a detox before, it's the most comfortable detox that they have been through or experienced. One of the statistics that we're really proud of is that, this is extremely successful. 98% of the detoxes that we that individuals go through, they are able to be completed, and the patient is on naltrexone therapy maintenance for at least 6 months. Most of our patients that are coming in, we are encouraging six months to a year of naltrexone therapy, in addition to other behavioral supports, and able to really look at long-term recovery success. What is unique about our program is that every individual coming in for treatment will have case management supports. And so what that means is, that we are connecting with the individual before they come in for treatment. We're really identifying what their strengths, needs, abilities, preferences are, what type of treatment they've been through in the past, where they are in terms of motivation to change, and what that's going to look like. So I think that Carrie Ann had mentioned, through their findings, when someone had overdosed and gone into a hospital and was given a list of, kind of different treatment facilities, it's too overwhelming. They're not going back to that list. So we're really spending the time to really make sure that we are scheduling those appointments. We're doing the education. Us in the provider field, we talk about IOP, PHP, it's, the alphabet soup. And so a lot of people don't even know what type of recovery supports are out there. So we spend a lot of time doing education and helping to move through that change. So all of the individuals that are going through our process, they do have the 6 months of case management support, as well as naltrexone therapy. So this is just a graph, every patient that I talk to before they come in, the number one fear is, how am I going to feel? They've gone through withdrawals. They know that the process is really unpleasant. And so we talk a lot about, our process, in that, in combination with using microdoses of naltrexone, which help to push the opiates off the receptors, in combination with the comfort medication, we're able to accelerate the length of time that it's going to take. And we're also able to do the induction to Vivitrol. So many individuals who have gone through detox have to wait, a period of time before they can get started on Vivitrol. We are doing that on the last day of our detox so that they are leaving with the induction. I want to flip over to another slide here. Let me just see here. So we've talked a little bit about the opioid detox. I wanted to talk a little bit about the alcohol detox procedure. Unfortunately, this pandemic has definitely poured gas on the fire. We know that, there's an increased amount of drinking and alcohol dependence that we are seeing. There's the isolation, the increased stress, increased depression. And so we are definitely seeing an uptick in alcohol use disorder. We have this outpatient detox procedure that is usually completed within 3 to 5 days. The initial day, the individual will be here for about 6 to 8 hours. They're in their own private room. We do use an IV to administer phenobarbital. And, this is a medication that really helps to, one, prevent seizures, and it's overall a sedative. And so throughout the course of that day, we're using the phenobarbital through the IV, as well as replenishing all the vitamins and nutrients that have been depleted through the course of alcohol use. All of our patients that come in for both treatments, opioid and alcohol, need to come in with a support person. That's someone who is going to be with them throughout the course of the program, that will drive them to and from the program, and any of the comfort medications that we are administering outside of the office, they will need to be responsible for. We spend a lot of time educating, the support folks when they come in. We're also very fortunate because we do have that opportunity to help to provide resources for the family or for the loved ones as well. So we're, not just identifying what types of supports that the individual needs, but also being able to offer that to the support people as well. Right now, we are covered with Blue Cross Blue Shield, Humana, Tufts, and Beacon Health options. In terms of the 6-month program, that's for both naltrexone therapy as well as case management support. Go back here. This is just, this will just show you, in Massachusetts, we are using Vivitrol because the naltrexone implant is not yet FDA approved. We do hope, we know there's many studies that are going on right now. And, with the naltrexone implant, once that is FDA approved, it offers 6 months duration, 2 months duration, 60 days, as opposed to our Vivitrol that's 1 month. The Vivitrol has been very effective and really cutting down the desire to want to drink alcohol, as well as the cravings associated with opioid use dependence. This is my information. This is my email address. This is my cell phone number. If anyone has any questions about what we do, I would love to have you come out to our office. We could give you a tour of the office, really kind of walk through our process. I know it's a very unique model, and so we definitely welcome that. And then if you had anybody that, was interested in this type of access to care, I would definitely prefer them to call me directly. I do introduce myself to every patient that comes in, and I explain the process and answer any questions. So it's just a warm hand. It's just a nice way to build rapport before the individual comes in for treatment. Does anybody have any questions?
Amanda, I saw that somebody put a question in the chat about, are you bound by geography? Can anybody participate?
We're not. So
Carol, did you? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, Carol, did you have a question?
You're muted, Carol.
Thank you so much. I didn't even know this program was in Wellesley. So as always, DA Ryan, I really appreciate being able to join these forums. And thank you, Amanda. Question, would a person need to go to the ER prior to get medically cleared before calling you? Is that something you consider when they call you? as I believe I wrote, directly call Amanda for kind of an intake.
Yeah, so what we would do is we would actually have the individual just complete a brief screening form, and then one of our medical providers would actually call and complete that screening over the phone. It's really just to look at, you know, medical conditions, any allergies to medications, and really just getting a good sense if this is the right fit in terms of right level of care. But all that can take place within, you know, the same day, within an hour of time.
Great. And may I ask one more? So if I refer someone, can a family member be calling insurance and then the other because they need a support person, and then the person be getting screened kind of simultaneously? Does the, say, Blue Cross or Tufts, how long is that review?
So what we would do is, you know, we have many people who reach out for a loved one and, you know, help to provide the insurance information. We actually have a team here that would do the verification of benefits on site. And so that's calling through to Blue Cross or to Tufts to look at what the plan covers, if there's any deductible, any copay. And we usually get that back within, you know, at least an hour or two of time. It just, you know, sometimes we are at the, you know, really at the benefit of the insurance company if they have a long wait, but typically it's about an hour to 2 hours. We get
That's
that back.
great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Yeah, no, thank you. Great question. And, you know, we have seen, you know, I think the model of care and just thinking of access to care and going back to the service dogs and how important that is. We had a woman who didn't want to leave her dogs to go inpatient because her dogs were her life. That was her, you know, her whole sense of purpose and being, and she did not want to leave the dogs. So being able to access care and then go back to her home at night was just, it was for her, it was a whole change. And we actually did have one of her service dogs come in during her treatment during the day, and it really just helped her to, you know, in terms of like self-soothing and comfort, and she's just amazing. So I'm a huge proponent of the dogs.
See, we don't even practice this, and it's a perfect segue. Amanda, there's another question in the chat of people, if someone is in a residential facility, such as a permanent supported housing or a shelter or something, could the staff at that program be their sort of accompanier if they come with them to be checking in with them?
Yes, we have had individuals that will bring a companion through their residential treatment program to treatment each day, as long as their program is okay with the medications. We do for the opioid detox specifically, we do administer comfort medications. So we would just want to ensure that those were being monitored, locked up, and you know, as long as the program allowed that in their facility, we'd be happy to have them be a support person to an individual.
Other questions, comments? Amanda, this was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, Newton Wellesley is actually hosting us to do the task force today, and I'll in a little bit be joining them for the Purple Flag program, but I wanted to spend the last few minutes we have together really giving an opportunity to people to just jump in and share something that makes you feel that the work that you're doing is having an impact in the community. You know, a success that you've seen, maybe something like what I mentioned about the lessening of stigma in your community. So don't be shy. You can either raise your real hand, raise your electronic hand, jump in the chat. Yeah, Stacy.
Hello. I'm grateful to be here right now. This is my first time on this meeting. It's very informative. What I wanted to touch on was the dog thing. Yeah. I had a dog. I just recently lost my dog last year in July. I had him for 13 years. He was my recovery dog, my companion, my everything. He knew every little deep dark secret, you know. So
Stacey, I lost you for a minute. You muted. You got muted. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, I truly believe in the dog therapy. You know,
Thank you.
It's a great thing. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this. Other folks, comments, changes you've seen over the years as we've done this work? You know, I think one of the things, someone came up to me the other day who's been involved with us for a long time, and they have a child who really had hit a very bad place in addiction and has now just recovered in an amazing way and rebuilt their life and is married, a baby, a job, everything you would want for your children. And he said to me, you know, that's the story that we don't hear. People think if you have addiction, you're never coming back. And that's why I think, you know, as much as we're thinking about people who've lost the battle, we want to be thinking about those people who have, with so much support and community and medical help and so many people who volunteer and give their time and who have gotten to a better place. Because I think that's really what gives people hope, is seeing that people can go from one place to another. Nora, anything to add? You've been amazingly quiet today. I know you're stunned by the thought of dogs galloping around.
I did text Megan. I said, wait, so we're opening a dog shelter now?
Don't start.
I think it's a great idea. I think that you know, I'm quiet because I'm stunned, because I'm trying to not tear up when I hear these stories, and I'm just very moved by the work that everybody's doing. And when I first joined the DA's office a number of years ago, as you mentioned, Marion, it was really different. And having come back a few years ago to work in this space, I am just so impressed with the collaborations on the law enforcement side, but mostly with what's going on the on the community side, and to see the creativity and the thoughtful work and the embrace of the folks with lived experience, you know, like the QR code, right? Never doubt the wisdom of people who've been there. That's what's going to get us out of any of these problems. And that embrace is really quite inspiring. So thank you all.
When Amanda was talking about the woman who wanted to get home to her dogs, I was immediately running through my head was like, could we get a place where people could leave their dogs? And then I thought that's probably just a bridge too far. I probably just can't go there.
Yes, I will say that.
Rita,
I just wanted to speak
Rita, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to speak from Newton Wellesley. From Newton Wellesley, just to say that we are just so thankful for the community that you provide in this call, DA Ryan. On this call today, there have been presentations by groups that we actively are involved with, in large part probably because of the communication that you've provided through this call with the work that you're doing. So community is such a source of recovery for our patients. And just to jump on the dog bandwagon, the amount of patients that say that they can't make an appointment and can't go into treatment because they're so worried about their animal, that is a real thing. And one of the things that I think could be a wonderful effort, if there was support for people's pets while they are able to get their wellness, that is a resource that would be very well utilized. We see it all the time in our clinic here in substance use services in Newton Wellesley. And one more thing about the purple flags, everybody is welcome. It's in less than an hour to just join the ceremony, and the two more Recovery City film screenings open to the public. Really powerful film that we're involved in. I'm on the panel and in meeting the filmmaker, and it's filmed by a Natick high school teacher who's just an incredible person. So thank you.
So I was sort of laughing, but what I'm thinking, and I've been thinking this morning, is, you know, we have a roadmap for that pet care, because we were part of the coalition to get many people don't know this, but 209 restraining orders in Massachusetts were modified a few years ago as a result of legislation to include that a court can now give custody of a pet. So many people would stay in an abusive relationship because the abuser threatened to keep that cat, dog, horse, whatever it was. And they felt like they couldn't do that. And we participated in a legislative change that put a box on there, just like a court can order children's custody, can order payment, can do all those things. It can order the custody of a pet to be transferred. And for many people, obviously, when they're, they may be leaving an abusive relationship and they have to go to new housing and there's a transitional period or whatever, we were able to work at developing a network of animal shelters that would temporarily care for those pets. So I'm thinking it's not a really long road from that group of shelters that were willing to help us to there may perhaps being willing to help while somebody's in a program or at an appointment or something. So I don't think that's, it sounded crazy 8 years ago when we said we're going to amend restraining orders to include pets, and now that's just an everyday thing. I think we can do the same thing here. I think that is not, and especially this would often be for a shorter period of time. People might sometimes be 4 or 5 months where they didn't have an apartment that would take their pet. And the shelters have been just amazing about helping out and taking in those pets for that bridge period. So I see Councilor Mercier here from Lowell, as always, the glue that holds us together like the Queen. Anything you want to add, Councilor?
Let me just say that to hear that you're going to include a pet, a dog, when you look at those beautiful eyes, they say so much how they love that person. That is remarkable. The sheriff has Millie. We have Millie with the female inmates in Billerica, and that dog does tremendous work just by being around us. We love her so much. So that's a good mix. But I did hear one of the presenters, I think it was Carrie Ann, who talked about a reptile. Now, if it were a frog or please don't do that. I'm petrified of snakes. I couldn't go anywhere, but thank you so much to all the presenters. What a remarkable morning this was. Very informative. Nice to know that there's programs and agencies, organizations, and programs that help those that are desperately in need. I know I could tell a story, but I know that I would be crying. So I think I'd just pass and leave it on a very happy note. But my tears would be of happiness, because that's why I give back to the Bridge Club of Greater Lowell of what God did for one of my family members. I'm so thrilled. Addiction is tough, whether it be alcohol or gambling or whatever. It's a chore. It's a disaster. It's frightening. So whatever the addiction is, and that person has given it up for over 3 years now, I thank God. Please never underestimate the power of prayer, because I firmly that I can't do it alone. And sometimes we all can't do it alone. We need the help of a higher power. That's my message for this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Andres.
Good morning, everybody. Just wanted to make a quick little announcement on a milestone for the syringe collection program we just hit earlier this month. In 3.5 years, the program has collected over 50,000 syringes out of the community, rivers, parks, sidewalks, you name it. We've collected over 50,000 syringes. And we're real happy to be at an. So just a quick little announcement about, the collateral damage program, I like to call it. So, so just a little bit of good news from our program.
That's great. Thank you. David.
Thank you. As you know, I've been on this coalition for quite a while, and the quality of our guests seems just to be getting so much better and better with the information they have to provide and the services they provide. It's been a great accomplishment. And this is exactly what I'm looking for. And exactly, as you know, the reason of my television series is to get this information out to the public. If you Google up addiction services, 5 billion names come up. So unless you know these names individually to Google them, they're not going to know they're out there. So these are 2 guests that I'm going to be contacting to see if they'd like to have an appearance on my show. I am doing a little better health-wise, as you can see, and I'm working right now trying to get Peter Katujian on. I'm working with Kevin in his department when he has a free day to come on. So I'm going to have some openings coming up shortly. And the guests that I've been using from this coalition alone are amazing. They're getting the story out. They're showing people what's available that they wouldn't know without the series and without your very hard and dedicated work getting this all together. So probably reaching out to our 2 speakers in the near future. I just wanted to say that over the years, the quality of the guests that you have and the services are just getting so immense and spectacular. What these people have to offer is amazing.
Thank you. And thanks to Nora, who does so much of the hard work putting this together every month. Anybody else? Last comments, questions? All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here. Take care.